Good afternoon, Mr. Cole. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Ross. How are you? You're a busy man, obviously.
Yes, yeah, busy days, mate. Everything's kind of getting back to normal, back to work and all that sort of stuff. Even though there's still a couple of lockdowns going on.
Yeah, well, I haven't got that luxury of work, as you know. I'm retired, so I got it's 48 hours in a day for me. Like it's incredible. It is. Plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Don't boast about it. Don't boast about it.
Plenty of time, but plenty of time.
So yeah, so we've done a few podcasts and we've talked about a few things. And we skirted over a few things. So what I thought was that as we've started these during lockdowns, and as we've addressed it a few times, I thought it'd be good if we just kind of, well, reference the fact that we're living in very strange times, and we're dealing with a very odd villain, and I guess the effect that has on people who write and maybe overthink things the way that writers tend to. And just kind of talk about what it's been like for us to go through this. So I mean, we're well into it now. We're in September now, so I think it started back in March. And the world significantly changed. A lot of the assumed entitlements and liberties that people had were taken away in lockdown. Some people have embraced that lifestyle and have done the right thing. Some people haven't. And we're in an interesting place now. We're in September, and there's sort of fresh lockdowns happening again. Especially in the valleys where I'm from. So Caerphilly and Rhondda and Taff now. And
yes, I think that I don't think people have listened. As you know, our daughter lives in Singapore. We were out there for a month. We went out for Christmas. Came back on the 10th of January. And they were taking our temperature as we were coming back in Changi Airport. So I had an idea there was something going on.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of weeks later, so I would say perhaps end of January, I think, Singapore locked down completely. Stopped all the Chinese flights, stopped people with visas going in, and when this COVID then took a grip of Europe, certainly Europe, Asia and Europe, they were basically down on numbers, if any at all. But obviously they had an outbreak there later with immigrants. So we locked down in March. Well, Carol and I locked down like a fortnight before everybody else. So when people say I'm into my 10th week, we were into our 12th week. And we are still basically on lockdown, me and Caroline.
So what was that like for you in those early days? What were the things that, that all of a sudden you couldn't do that you were used to doing before?
Well, nothing really, Ross, because we like I say, me and Caroline in a different position. Like we both retired. Caroline does her thing. Obviously, she goes to the slimming club every once a week and that type of thing. And we visit a lot. We do, relatives, obviously. Well, all that came to a halt. But basically, to function, if anything, the way we shop has changed and everything, and if anything, it's freed up the hours for us. We went this morning and basically we did our shopping in 40 minutes. Whereas it normally take about 2.5 hours. So I think there's changes in the way you live, but I'd hate to have like two little kiddies running around the place for like 3 or 4 months. You understand me? And trying to work from home, very, very difficult. So you know what I mean. And then obviously once the kids are back in school like they are, that frees you up. These people still work from home, but obviously, is there going to be a second wave? That looks like there is going to be a second wave. And would it be as bad as the first? Will you have all these people dying, as is alleged? I say that in broadest terms because I worked in a nursing home for 15 years. And initially, they were getting blamed for this, that and the other. Well, it's not true. I've got a friend who runs 2 massive homes in Maesteg and Tondi. And I was talking to her yesterday about it, and she basically says it's all publicity, it's all false figures. You know what I mean? The deaths are not what they were, not what the government is saying. So where do you go? You know, we vote these people into government to run our country. They tell us to do this and do that, and we do it. And then you've got people who are in charge of hundreds of people saying, well, hang on a minute, it's just not right, like, you know what I mean? But when you see people like driving a bus, going to Doncaster races and doing a pub crawl, like 50-odd blokes, well, there's something wrong there, isn't there? You know, it's got to be weighed up. I think if people had been sensible from the first, from the off, like anything, and complied to everything, I don't think we'd be where we are today. With these lockdowns all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. Hand on heart, I'm not sure I can lay any blame fundamentally with the government, because I don't think there's a government in the world that knew how to handle this.
No.
You know, it's unheard. I know there's been pandemics before this, but this one, you know, was a horror story waiting to happen. It was like I always remind me of that Stephen King novel, The Stand, you know, when half the world is wiped out, there's only a few people left.
You got it, yeah.
So yeah, so there was that about it. I don't think the world, and I aim this at the world, I don't think the media and their coverage has helped at all. And I think that's why there's definitely been a feeling of mixed messages from whether it be government, local government, press, you know. So early on, I remember within the first week, and it was different for me. I mean, I was traveling for work. My job was to go into companies, deliver presentations, and work with people. And all of a sudden, I couldn't do that. You know, I'd spend hours on trains a week and in hotels, and then so that was quite sort of jarring. And then early on, I kind of decided, well, I can't watch the news anymore, because everything is so sensationalized. And I think the problem with news now is, especially around the 24-hour news, is they're selling advertising slots, right? So, you know, the headlines are always quite misleading, and the content is always extreme. It's so you kind of lose a bit of reality that way. and social media was very much like that as well. You know, all of a sudden, you know, the lollipop lady at the end of the street was an expert in coronavirus, and you know, or the PE teachers in schools, and it's like, well, no. I mean, so I tend to just get my information from the government website, and that sort of teased everything. But you know, where I am in Cardiff, to see the traffic go to nothing, and I have to be honest, I quite liked living here during lockdown. It was quiet. I did quite like it. But there was a stillness to the earth, and I think that was very strange to take in, especially for someone like me that, you know, say you live in a big city, I spend lots of times in train stations, and I'm in London and Warrington and, you know, various other places. So to see the world in effect stop was really quite a shocking thing. And then, you know, you're right, and then the writers started coming in, and then the poems started, and the short stories, and like you said, being your friend, the nurse, and you know, I remember seeing an interview with an American doctor that was said that he was forced to write COVID on death certificates, and it's so hard, it's so disingenuous to actually get in the truth out there. I'm not saying he's a liar at all, but
no, you know,
in a single narrative from start to finish with this.
I think you know, they go about hospitals and cleanliness. You know what I mean? Our hospitals are no cleaner now than they were before the pandemic, right? Make no bones about that. I got personal experience of that within the last fortnight, 3 weeks, right? Now, you know, you had this thing, clap for the NHS. I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm all for it. Prior to the pandemic, nobody really cared about the NHS. If anything, they had a bad name.
Yeah.
You were people saying, I'm waiting 2 years for hip operation. I got to pay for it on my elbow and that type of thing. Then all of a sudden, they're all heroes. Well, let's be fair now, right? They weren't all heroes. Only a small percentage of them were heroes because they were in amongst the wars with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're 6 months on, and whereas 6 months where everybody loved our neighbours, out clapping, talking to your neighbours who we've never seen for donkey's years.
Yeah.
That's changed again now, that has. That's changed again now. You know what I mean? It's gone back to what it was before the COVID. But my theory on that is, well, that's just people. That is, you're never going to change that. That's time immemorial. That is, you know, you mean. So, you mean I think people are very blasé gone about it now. Oh, it's over now. See,
there is an overconfidence now.
Yeah. What if the government came out tomorrow and said, right, okay, nobody's listening. COVID's finished. It's finished. There's no, you know, that's it now. You take your chances. You go back to work if you want to. You do this, do that. Will the majority of people do that? I don't think so.
Well, we saw that with schools, didn't we? You
Well,
know,
exactly.
it's like go back to schools, and they were like, "Well, the government's not telling me when to do that. I'll decide when my child goes back."
Yeah. Well, so the government, if the Boris came out tomorrow and the cabinet said, "Look, we've had a vote. COVID's finished. We keep the beds, the Nightingale hospitals, and if you come down with it, you go to the Nightingale hospital straight away." We've got people walking around. I can't get tested, and I'm thinking to myself, why do you want to get tested? You've got no symptoms. So why are you making a fuss? You can't get through on the phone or this, that, and the other. If you haven't got the symptoms, don't get tested, because you can get tested today. 5 days later, following day you've got a negative. 5 days later you're positive. Now, so what's the point of being tested? There's no point in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make the NHS. You're absolutely right. You know, I mean, it's something that it's a service that it is the envy of the world, but it's been struggling, and it really wouldn't be able to cope with this, to be honest. But they've done exceptionally well with these Nightingale hospitals, etc. And you're right that I don't. For everyone that was on the doorstep clapping, you know, there's still a bus full of people that go to Doncaster for a racing day, and you know, and that doesn't add up. So, you know, and I think looking at hearing some of the conversation yesterday, they are sort of saying that now it's a few people and they're kind of spoiling it for everyone else. But you know, you're always going to have them, and unfortunately, sometimes they're the first ones to then blame the government when they get it. So yeah, it's. I remember as soon as they reopened the pubs, I remember seeing it, and it was on Facebook. As soon as they announced the pubs were reopening, the first thing I saw was minibus trips to Cardiff. Vomits, £20 return. Last bus, you know, there was no waiting, no hesitation. Now I love a pint in a bar. I love it, right?
Well, we all do.
But I haven't been to one yet.
No.
I don't want to be the guinea pig, to be honest. And I think what I've seen as well is they were very busy for that first week, and then it's sort of slowed down again now. So maybe it was just that the pubs are open, you know, but it's strange. It's strange how we're reacting to it, and I think we need to be smarter about it. But you mentioned the NHS, and I know you wrote a piece about the NHS during your isolation.
Yes.
Can you do you want to give us a reading of it?
Yeah, let me just bear with me, because I got to go onto my phone, because
I'll just tell everybody we'll put a commercial break in.
Yeah, commercial break. I got a couple here. I got one funny one, but which one was this? Yeah, that's okay. You know what I mean? How I put it on my page was, I thought I'd do pen a few verses in support of all our NHS staff who are at the front line fighting the coronavirus with no thought for themselves. And Aaron Bevan, if he's looking down, would be well proud of them all, because, you know, he's instrumental with others in setting up the NHS. And I titled it "Toast Our NHS Service." Conceived by an Iron, a proud Tredegar son, our National Health Service is second to none. In these troubled times, never letting us down. A legacy of socialism, worldwide renowned. Our nurses and doctors, they fill us with pride, battling a virus that is spreading worldwide. Compassionate staff were second to none, all tirelessly coping since this crisis began. These angels of mercy such an enthusiastic breed. They've always been there in our hour of need. At birth or death, so much humanity they show, a profession so caring, reassurance they bestow. Stretched to the limit, just managing to cope. As each day passes, they give us all hope. Lives laid on the line on pandemic days, no second thoughts, such ardour displayed. We all must support, they are our mainstay. So just self-isolate and continually pray. Let's raise a glass, which they richly deserve. Heroes of the hour, we must all now preserve. I wrote that one, obviously, once it started gaining its momentum. And as I say, not all the nursing staff were at the sharp end of this pandemic. It was only a minority, obviously. But for those who were, and other workers, mind you, not only nurses, police officers, fire service, ambulance service, delivery drivers, postmen, they all deserve a mention, because the postman, masks on, coming not near to you, that type of thing. You know what I mean? All carrying out the orders, basically, that were given by the government. And I think, if we'd started that from the beginning, if everybody, and I mean everybody now, did that, I don't think we'd be here today talking about this second wave. As you said, it's a minority, right? And as you know, it's a minority in everything, crime, anything at all. It's always a minority. But what I see in this country, or in the UK, the minority seems to be taking over from the majority. If you're in a minority of anything these days, I think your voice is heard more than the majority. You mean? So so it's time, like, the government quashed the minority. I'm going back to these COVID carriers, like the Doncaster buses. Let's give it, if you trace them, if you've got 52 men and they've been traced as carriers or bringing that virus into a valley, one of the biggest populated valleys in Wales, yeah, well, do something about them.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a number of things with that, isn't it? It's like, well, you obviously know who they are. You obviously know where the buses come from.
Well, exactly.
And until, I don't want it to turn into a school scenario, but somebody has to be made an example of.
I think so.
Because otherwise there is no deterrent, right? Because otherwise it's crime with no punishment, which doesn't really work at all, and there's no incentive, I mean, to really fix it. And I completely take on board what you say about loud voices, and I think that's what's so interesting especially around the last few elections. Definitely the last election, when Comrade Corbyn was gonna moonwalk into Downing Street, and everyone loved him, and the media loved him, and everyone on social media loved him, and Boris was the devil. But then what happens is you have an election, and then the majority then speak, and the same with Brexit. So I think you're right. I think there are groups where it's a very small number of people, but they're incredibly loud, and the media seems to love to get behind those causes. Unfortunately, what you then end up with is news broadcasting and definitely social media platforms that really don't reflect what the majority, the democratic majority of people think. So I think it's very easy, and I think, especially with COVID, it's very easy to sit back and go, well, this is it. The world's over. It's done. And this is the apocalypse. It's very easy to do that, but I think when you look at it and you break it down and you realize that these loud dissenters, and I don't really want to go on to what's happening in America right now, but it's such a small number of people, and but they're given so much attention, and if you give them attention, then they quite rightly believe that everybody agrees with them because they have so much attention. But the reality is not that, and America will face its reality on the 4th of November. You know?
With Trump, he'd probably have a landslide victory.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Make no bones about that. You mean because I think the majority will go with him. Because Trump's stance on this type of business, I'll put the troops in and we'll quell it in 8 hours. That's the way he is. No, we don't work like that. This country doesn't work like that.
No.
You mean I heard a professor on the radio this morning. These spikes up in Sunday. More people are going to die, and I think people don't want to hear that, man.
No.
Be positive and say, give the message. Listen to me now. Just listen. Self-isolate. Go back to what it was like 6 months ago, and hopefully in a 43 weeks this will die off again.
Yeah.
But don't say, oh, people are going to die, especially the elderly, see? And I think to myself, no, elderly. I'm elderly. I'm 70 years of age. I've self-isolated for like nearly 7 months. I don't want to test for COVID. What do I want to test for COVID for? I haven't been out of the house hardly. So when they're on about the seasonal flu, I can guarantee you that people in their 70s, 80s and 90s haven't been outside the house.
No.
So where are they going to catch flu from then?
Again, it's fear, isn't it? Fear is a powerful thing.
And the media, like Sky and BBC and ITV, they are putting fear into people, and that shouldn't be. Not on a pandemic.
No.
The people should be told from the beginning, this is what it is, this is what it can do, and this is what we should be doing. And anybody who goes outside those parameters, and sort of disobeys those instructions, well, you've got to sort them out. Just like anything. Otherwise, they're just going to run riot, which is what's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into it because obviously it's very sensitive subjects, but there's, fear and to rule and control by fear. I mean, I think there's a few dictators in the past that have tried to do that and have come a bit of a cropper with it. So it's not the best way to engage it. But also, there has to be a way to cut through all the nonsense. There has to be a way to cut through exact statements like that. Statements like that are no good to anybody.
Of course,
and that's why I think with the positivity of it, I think we were in a situation where we were living in a different way, and we maybe had a wider appreciation for family life and the quieter life and the slower life. But then you're right. I mean, given the first opportunity, we were rats on the wheel again. So I think, I think the smart people will hold on to that way of life, and will kind of cherish that way of life. I think
the message should be to people, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's light at the end of the tunnel, not this doom and gloom.
Yes.
Do you understand me? So yes, there's been an outbreak in Rhondda and Teff. We've shut it down for a week and everything's dropped down, and that's the way it should be. That's the way we should be coping and dealing with this virus, not a pandemic, because it's not a pandemic anymore.
No.
Because it hasn't gone through the country.
No.
I say, yeah, look, it's happening around the Cynnon Taff. We did this, put this in place, and now it's dropped right down. It's happened up in Caerphilly. We put this in place and it's dropped down. Now, that's the way we got to cope with it in the future.
Yeah.
And that's the way we are going to cope with it in the future. And I think once everybody gets their head around that, say, well, hang on a minute now, you know what I mean? I don't want to be closed down here, so I'll adhere to what I got to do. But it doesn't seem to be like that. It seems to be, oh, people are going to die. The testing, Gethin was on about testing, and he's got all the answers. You'll never trip him up, right? But it's all bullshit. It's you know what I mean? My sister works in a private nursing home. From day one, they've had everything. They've had all the PPE. They've had all the testing. They get tested every week. They haven't had a COVID death there. My friend who runs the two homes, exactly the same there. They haven't had a death there from COVID. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if you've got two massive nursing homes and a private nursing home, and you've had nothing in there since the pandemic, you're doing very well. And the reason they're doing very well is because they've listened to what they've been told.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, that's not a hard equation to work out, is it? Listen to what you're told, do what you're told.
Do what you're told.
and then everything's fine.
It's like anything else, you know what I mean? You've got to listen. You've got to listen to it, and then you can discuss it and may not agree with it, but at the end of the day, because you don't agree with it, you've got to think of the majority of people.
Yeah.
And with this COVID, it's the elderly. You know, they go, children under 11 don't have to self-isolate. What's that about? To me, I think to myself, well, we're all the same, aren't we? You know what I mean? Kids catch colds. Kids catch this. So what's the difference? If this COVID is such a rampant virus, why aren't we protecting our under 11s then? It's you've got professors. One will say black, the other will say white. One will say it's deadly, or says no, it's not. And I think to myself, would you believe which government professor do you believe?
I was listening to
I don't know,
these American politicians talking, and one of them, I don't remember her name. She was saying, well, Trump didn't act soon enough, and he should have locked it down earlier. And if he'd locked it down in January or February, then all this would have happened. And his mismanagement of the situation, and the usual sort of rhetoric.
That's it, yeah.
And then the interviewer then pointed out that, like, this lady herself, she was trying to organize a street party in San Francisco at the end of March, right, to celebrate some cultural event. And it's like, well, you can't go on television and say he should have done this then when you were there in March, and obviously you weren't taking it seriously anyway. Plus, apparently, he was one of the first in the world to shut the borders to China anyway, and Europe. So, yeah, it's all quite odd. I mean, for me, I think that the hardest part for me initially was, I've got, a niece who's nearly 4.
That's right.
It was great to be with, and I missed my mother's cooking on Sundays, I gotta be honest.
Oh, you're back to normal now, though, aren't you?
We're back now. Well, no, we're on the kind of taff now.
Well, it was your last meal last week.
That was my last supper. So so when I sat down to write something, initially I wasn't going to write anything because I thought, well, everyone's going to do it, so you really don't need my voice in it. So when I sat down, I was very focused on the idea of isolation as a mood, as well as a practice. So I wrote a poem called Isolation, March 2020, which is pretty soon after I think everything had kind of grown to a halt for me. And like I said earlier, there was all this silence, which is eerie in a city, right? It's eerie.
Oh.
And, it's almost, like watching The Walking Dead on television. It's like something's happened here. A zombie apocalypse, I don't know what it is. But, but I'll read this one. And yes. then we can talk some more then. So this is called Isolation. There are no outside these days. And here inside, the clocks beat their chests like drumming giants, a taunting for the ears, a ticking, talking cackle, and isolation's constant marker. They say the devil rides the air these days, and the land is still, retreated from its value. There are no sounds to differ day or night, both blended now to simple, tranquil nothingness. The room is empty, full, a stale and closing thing, and its windows tease of other streets, empty now but begging wanderers. The touch of winds and other lost and aged acts no privilege. But around the land the people fall, the ailments gavel, striking as a constant thunder. Again and again and again it takes them, choking lungs to gravel, boiling at their skins and ushering some to deeper solemn darkness. Yet here we crave the memory of sun and the loving hold of our own ones, a mother's hug and father's dab, a sister's smile and a niece's beam. But For their sake, I am saving you here inside, by aching at my stone to have you near. And of all the things, and of all the things that I'm here wishing, I can never bond with the art of missing. So for the days that are to come, I will dream of hugs and memories unborn.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything worse than isolation, to be honest with you. I go back, I worked in a nursing home for 15 years, and some of the clients that we had coming in from their own homes, elderly, living on their own, mobility poor, diet poor, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then you sit down, and I used to sit with them every day, and you'll have a chat with them, and they tell you about the families and how they've lost their husband and what they used to do in the war and this type of thing. And you know what I mean? It must be dreadful for the elderly, this elderly isolation.
Mm.
It's like yourself, you got Nat there in the lockdown. I got Caroline here. You know what I mean? You got the internet. You got Skype. You got all sorts of things. You can keep in touch with people, but to be on your own, and not only elderly, but you could be, say, for example, you could be agoraphobic or something like that. You know what I mean? You could have all sorts of illnesses which you can't get out. You can't meet people.
Mm-hmm.
Your lifeline is the phone or whatever. You're not computer literate or whatever. So, yeah, you're right. I think the COVID have changed people's perspective of isolation. And like I said initially, when everybody was clapping and everybody's good friend, I think the isolation went out the window, didn't it?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because you were talking to neighbours who perhaps you hadn't spoken to for I'm lucky you and my neighbours. I know most of the neighbours here, they're good as gold. But I'm sure there are estates and council estates where we've got people who don't see their neighbours from day to day.
Mm.
Can't even call on them for assistance, you know what I mean? That type of thing. So, yeah, I think your poem sums it all up there, and especially with family.
Mm.
You know, as you know, Karen, our daughter's expecting a little girl now in December. God knows when we'll see her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But luckily we can speak like this, can't we?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Any time of day, early hours in the morning, I can see Caroline being on pins, or when the baby's due, and if she goes into us and Dean rings, look, she's gone in. Well, you know, whatever time it's going to be over here, you're going to be up, aren't you? You'll be on pins, like. But you imagine if, say, for example, you living on your own, you didn't have access to anything. Good God, like, your stress levels will go through the ceiling, like. But
you think, don't you, about something like this? But then you think, well, what if this had happened 30 years ago?
Oh, good God, like.
You know, with the way communication was, and when obviously there was none of this then. I mean, exactly. You go back even further, and I mean, well, you're going to wait until the 6 o'clock news, or how are you going to get the information out there? So we're being quite lucky in a way that we have this technology and we have all this stuff that can help us get through it and stop us going completely crazy.
Exactly.
Well, some of us. But, but it's, to go back to the 70s and the early 80s.
Well, go back further than that. I look back at my mother, how she got 6 kids up in the morning to get them to school by 9 o'clock, and I have no idea. It's bad enough. It was bad enough for getting 2 out of bed, yeah? Mm. Are you going to school today? Get down here. You know, so, as you know, with big families in the 50s and 60s, good God, it must be a nightmare. Can you imagine it today if you had 6 kids?
No, I don't want to be honest.
Oh, no, well, no, you'd be in the lunatic asylum, wouldn't you? You know, after a fortnight. You'd be signing yourself in, like. But I did do a poem. I thought when it started, I thought, I'll do a funny one, like, I'm kind of fed up of putting the telly on now and all this business. And I called it my lockdown nightmare.
All right.
And I'll give a read of that one now. It
sounds cheery.
Well, it's funny, it is, isn't it?
All right,
no, these Groundhog Days have put me on edge. My nerves are all shot. I've given up the pledge. I'm back on the sauce. 2 bottles a day. My waistline's expanding. What can I say? Slimmer of the month was my claim to fame. But then came the lockdown. That's what I blame. Our fridge keeps on calling. I've lost all control. HP and ketchup with bacon and egg rolls. I put on 3 stone, a fat bastard I am. For a Sunday lunch, I ate a whole leg of lamb. Followed by pudding, I just couldn't refuse. But that's not all. Did I mention the booze? I'm putting it away as if there's no tomorrow. Wine, beer and spirits to drown all my sorrow. Slimming World and AA are beckoning me. Before I succumbed, it was coffee and tea. Where will it all end? Are there many like me? Because before this corona, I didn't foresee. It's all been a nightmare. I've woken up in a haze. It must be the cheese or a COVID malaise. So I did that. That was my nightmare. That was, I had a nightmare, see, and I woke up then, and it was, whoa, I'm all right, like, you know. But I used to listen to people, and they say, oh, I'm drinking, see, my neighbour, oh, I'm putting it away, Arth. Do a meeting for Britain, which people were. You know, you're in the house all day, and you're thinking, oh, I'll have something to eat. I'll have a bottle of lager, or I'll have a glass of wine now, 11 o'clock in the morning, like, you know, that type of thing. So that was my sort of, that was my nightmare. But I'll read the last one after, which was, I blame the Chinese, I do. Simple as that, but it's, no, it's them, but I'll read that one later on. Have you got anything there now?
I don't know where to start. I mean, I kind of, we were talking about, you know, if it had happened at other times, you know, and then, you know, and it should give you appreciation for the past and for all the complaining that we've done. You know, when you think about those people that lived through things like the Blitz, and wars, and just the mettle of those people, you know, how they must have been so strong and so much stronger than us. I mean, we are just soft, entitled wusses these days compared to these guys. And I mean, I say the same to the NHS. I tip my hat to the NHS, and a friend of mine from school, Sarah Morgan, works at the NHS, and you know, I love what they've done. I love what they've done, and they should be clapped and respected through it. You know, and especially those ones, you're right, the ones on the front line. You know, going in to treat someone that has this, knowing how contagious this is. You know, that, I mean, you are, in a sense, you are going to war with something, you know, and how many of them lost their lives, and how many of them came out of retirement, you know, to work again. I mean, it was an incredibly, very British thing. Very British thing. You know, I am a Welshman through and through. I'm a patriot of Wales, and I love Wales. But I'm also very proud to be British. You know, and with our armed forces and everything else that goes with it, the police, you know, all the fire services, everything that we do, I'm incredibly proud of it. But you wonder, you know, what would it have been like if we hadn't had this thing, you know, like you and I talk most days. You know, and you know, we probably, and these podcasts would have been boring if it was just you and I sending carrier pigeons back and forth.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's odd. But I kind of made the decision early on that I wasn't going to write, because you know what I'm like as well. If I get a bit melancholy, I can get a bit stuck in it. So I made that decision. I wasn't going to do it. And then a few weeks in, I started to. But again, this is my sense of humor. I'm not as, you know, fantastically funny as you are. But I started writing travel poetry because I was locked down. I couldn't go anywhere. I started writing poems about places that I'd been. So obviously Scotland came up and a few times, and I was back into writing things about the Highlands, and then I fell back into that sort of Western styles thing that I was doing before. And yeah, I started writing about Kefalonia and Australia and America. And I thought, well, if I'm writing about it, I'm thinking about it. And if I'm thinking about it emotionally or psychologically, I must be there. And so I wasn't, astral projection or anything like that. I wasn't sending my spirit over the world to go somewhere, but it was an escape. It was a way to get to new places. I also then started the idea that I kind of realized that the Highlands book I'd written kind of wasn't finished. There was other stuff that I'd written that I hadn't put in that book, that I have in a file, and maybe one day I'll do something with it. And then when I started looking into it, there were other things. I mean, in Highlands, there's 3 Western Stars poems, but then it turns out I'd written 4, 5, and 6 as well. But yeah, that's what I was kind of doing. I was kind of walking the glens and dipping my toes in the lochs of the Highlands of Scotland from my own, where I'm sitting now.
So you had your mojo back then?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Because as you know, and you speak to loads of poets and writers, they do get like the mojo goes now and again, doesn't it? They're in a place where nothing that they put on paper or computer actually. It's like those films where somebody's going to write a book and then he's typing away and then you look in the bin and there's like 400 pieces of crumpled up paper. And then you look on the typewriter, he's done 2 lines like on his chapter 2 or chapter 1. You know what I mean? As you know, I'm very lucky in that way because when this virus came out, I only wrote poetry about it that people asked me to write. Like my friend who runs the 2 homes, she said, "Can you write something about carers in a home and their families and loved ones?" Because for those 4 or 5, they had no contact with their families. Mm. There's no contact at all, and the only contact they had was the carers.
Yeah.
And as you know, they are part of the family anyway. Because each carer's got their own individual client, if they've got enough carers, and obviously that carer gets very bonded with the families. So when the daughter or the husband or whoever comes, they ask for if it's a gentleman, is Ross working today? And Kay would say, yes, he's down the unit, go down and see him. And you were there, and you look after their father or their mother or whatever, and you got that bond. So I think what the COVID did, certainly in Kay's two homes, was the extended family, the family became closer to the carers as well, because because they couldn't see their family, they couldn't see their loved ones. The carers basically take over that full family role then, because for 24 instead of like each shift, it's like 24 hours a day. You know what I mean? So I didn't write the 404. I think it's 4 I wrote. Specifically because of COVID, because I find it quite depressing. How can you write a sort of, but you can write a caring poem.
Yes. You
can write a caring poem to put it in perspective. Yeah, it's happening, but this is happening as well. This love is still there. This feeling is still there amongst these people.
Exactly.
The NHS, the carers, the district nurses. They become what they did in the COVID. They became more knitted together. It didn't drive them apart. It actually brought them together, and I think that has stayed. My sister is a carer, fabulous, looked after my mother for years. Right, honestly, if you need a carer, my sister, she's so caring and loving, it's unbelievable, and she's very, very caring about individuals. And she so I get it a bit off her that when she talks to me, I don't see her very often, but I'll ask her something and she'll spurt something out and I think, oh Christ, that's nice. So when Kay asked me to write a poem called Tender Loving Care, obviously you chuck a bit of that in because she's a carer. So you know what I mean, it's brought bad, but it's obviously brought good as well. But I blame the Chinese. Well, I blame those batty Chinese.
Right, they're probably listening. So
well, here it is. If they tune in.
All right.
I think it's more of a limerick. They say I don't write limericks, but I think it's more of a limerick. There was an old man from Hangzhou who loved the odd bat or two. Dead or alive, he didn't really care. His favourite, however, was medium to rare. An odd bowl of soup didn't go amiss, cockroach or rat, just pure bliss. A fever he developed out of the blue. Taking no notice, he thought it was flu. A global time bomb is what he became. So he is the one we've all got to blame. A world in disarray, death so common, oh so common. A pandemic deadly, never to be forgotten. One thing it's done is brought us together. Communities united through honest endeavour. Here's a bit of advice. Just stay clear of bats. But there again, in Wuhan, they're still eating cats. Blame the Chinese.
Well, I can honestly now see why they never had you on the BBC during this. I can see that now. No, another great one. Isn't it strange though? Because like you are synonymous with a number of things, but one thing for you, like most of your subject matter actually, so the mining and the wars, it's very serious.
Yeah.
Very, not dark because it's written lovely, but it's serious life and death stuff that you write.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course it is.
But then, so to me, I'm trying to see that irony link now to actually when we're in a pandemic, where lives are being threatened. And again, I think that's what's different about writers to how maybe a lot of people think. You actually went to comedy.
Yeah.
So like that to me, I'm trying to see that sort of synergy.
Yeah.
It's really quite strange. And I guess it's similar to what I was saying earlier about, how I went to travel poetry because I couldn't go anywhere.
Exactly. And, when I wrote that one, I thought, oh, it's like a limerick it is, you know what I mean? But I thought, yeah, they were all blaming somebody, weren't they? So I thought, well, I'll blame the Chinese because I hadn't long come back from Singapore. And obviously they were gunning us in Singapore. So it's come from China, haven't it? It's come across, like, you know what I mean? It hasn't come from Italy, like a bit, or Ireland. It's come from China. So I thought, I'll whack him in.
Well,
Hangzhou.
There we go. If anyone is ever, without doubt, Arthur Cole knows who Patient Zero is.
That's right, but and then you chuck a bit of unity in with it as well. Then and then you chucked a little bit at the end, don't you? Bloody blah. Don't do this, like.
Yeah.
So you know me. Yes, it's a very, very serious subject, but there again, you've got to make light of it as well. Otherwise, I hate this sort of deep, like depressive. I put the telly on every channel. COVID this, people, and I think people don't want to hear that. Man, put something light on there. Something different. They've gone into this rut now for like 6 or 7. It's as if they're in a furrow and they can't get out. We got to keep.
Yeah, there's. I think we forget sometimes that, and it's a very British thing again. Sorry to keep banging the.
Oh no, I totally agree with you.
But humour is a very British coping mechanism.
Well, of course it is. It's like black humour in the police or the fire service or ambulance service.
Yeah.
It's all between yourselves. You don't say it in front of relatives or deceased relatives. But when you're there with these services, be it a nurse, a fireman, an ambulanceman, a police officer, and something disastrous happens, like up in Porth the other morning, a multiple pile-up, people injured, people dead, you're dealing with that. And I can guarantee you the release then with those emergency services is a black humour. If anybody hears it, they think, how can they say that when it's people dead or injured? But that's the release.
It's the coping mechanism.
It's the coping mechanism. Otherwise, you bottle it all up. Yeah. And that's the problem that when they talk about PTSD and all this type of thing, you know what I mean? When I joined the police in 69, 67, PTSD wasn't known of. And then as I went through my career, especially when I was on the beat and stuff for 3 years, the accidents and this, that, and the other. Now, you finish your shift at 10 o'clock. You either went for a pint or you went home, had a bit of supper, and went to bed.
Mm.
Nobody ever said to me, "How are you feeling?" Bradley, never even cropped up it in. And then as the years progressed, especially with the military, what they went through with these wars, and then it crept in. You could see it with those soldiers coming back from war. They shot to pieces, shot to pieces, and then PTSD now is, I think everybody suffers from it now by the sound of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's like I remember I was in the Queen's Vaults in Cardiff once, and the Welsh Guards. There's a couple of Welsh Guards in there.
Yeah.
So my friend and I, we bought them a couple of drinks, and we were chatting to them. I mean, and I can't really repeat what squaddies say.
No. But the same again. See, it's black humor.
But the humor, yeah, it was proper black comedy, filthy, horrible stuff. But they, like I said, that's what they do in the barracks. That's how they release it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always quite lucky. I've got pretty Sponey is one of my friends. He's a very funny guy. You can always count on him to be the first clown to the table. Natalie and I have got a very kind of funny relationship. But my father is a very quick-witted, funny man. My mother has got a great sense of humor. My sister, everyone I kind of interact with, they kind of all have this very sort of funny sort of sense of humor. And it was weird, actually, because when one of my friends read my first book, when it came out, and they rang me after they read it, and he said it just wasn't what he was expecting. And I said, well, what were you expecting?
That's right.
And he said, well, I know you. He said, you joke and you laugh. He said, but that's not on the page. He said, I was expecting something funny to come out, or, and I said, well, yeah, but that doesn't, that aspect of me doesn't translate to the page at all. And I try. I mean, there's a few things I try and do to kind of show humor in places, but the way I think and something I may say just does not translate to a page. I don't know what it is.
It's like, I got a lot of friends who I haven't seen for like 50 years, and obviously they're on my page, my group and stuff. And when they actually join it, they go, where's all this come from then? Where's all this poetry and all this literature? Where's it all come from? We didn't know you could do that. And I say to them, well, I didn't either. I was 65, 66 when I wrote the first poem. So I said, well, no, I've had like a 50-year hiatus, is it they call it?
A hiatus.
Hiatus. I've had a 50-year hiatus, I go, and obviously...
Nobody can ever say that you peaked too soon.
That's right. But, and it's like you say, a lot of my experiences growing up, come out in the poetry. My sense of humor probably comes out in it. My black side comes out in it. I think it's all experience with me more than anything. It's like the books, we write. It's the experiences come out as fiction. But when people read them, especially policemen, they think, well, that's the way it is. Like that's it. Like who is it? I know who it is. I know who you're talking about. Because
that's the thing that strikes me really, especially with the Terry Maguire stuff, is for someone like you, I find it very hard to understand why there's not a memoir, why there's not a biography. Do you know what I mean? For the things you've seen, I don't understand why you wouldn't write that.
When I wrote the first one with Nigel, I never for 1 minute put my persona into Terry Maguire. Consciously. I just invent this police officer, this detective inspector, and I just whack him in. People who read it or read them, who worked with me, and I mean my subordinates, my DCs and whatever, and even my DIs who were in charge of me, they read, they go, it's you. And I go, well, I never wrote it as me. I've just created it, and the procedure and everything and the plots go with him.
Yeah.
But because of my experience in the investigative part of it, it's like an amalgam of everything. But Terry Maguire is not me. Terry Maguire is total fiction. He may have bits and pieces of people I've worked with, but he's his own individual. He's I mean, I suppose the only thing that is comparable with me is he's a workaholic and things have got to be done properly. And perhaps that's where it stops, probably. You know what I mean? Because I haven't put anything into Terry Maguire on the chances I've taken in my career. Otherwise, you end up in prison. You know what I mean?
Maybe you should think about some sort of memoir, maybe.
No, we'll keep him as he is, I think, Ross. We'll keep him as he is, I think, but he's doing all right, I think. But,
well, 12, he must be doing all right.
Well, you know what I mean?
Right, well, I'm going to...
I've got one more for you.
Go on then.
No, this is the one I wrote, which Kay asked me to write for the carers, right? And
well, you give me that one. You give me that one, and then I'll take you up to the Highlands for a couple of minutes.
All right, lovely. I'll finish this off. I've put on it. I've written one for the NHS, so this is the one for all the nursing and residential carers in the front line as well. So if there's any of them watch this, obviously we've our hearts go out to you. Obviously, and I call it tender loving care, right? To care for a loved one is a pleasure indeed. In these pandemic days, with so many in need, families and friends, they all do their best. Just one little thought, they are truly blessed. This lockdown is hurting, causing so much strife. Residing in a care home is a different way of life. No visits allowed, many heartbroken families. No hugs and kisses, heavy-hearted agonies. Staff know their family, who knows for how long. These frontline carers, so resilient, so strong. Safe in their care, compassion guaranteed, always on hand, seeing to their needs. Consoled when distressed, treated like parents, surroundings created, comfortable and pleasant. Much music and dancing, rolling back the years, lovingly on hand, consoling, drying memory tears. Minds locked in time, each day the same, no perception of corona or loved ones' names. Carers in masks, hugs and kisses now missing. Normality to return is what they're all wishing. Carers, we salute you, such love and dedication, knowing loved ones are safe, such a deadly situation. Look after yourselves, you're doing fabulous work, prosper and cherish, it's what you all deserve. You know what I mean? In nursing homes, when the nursing home I worked in, the residents always had a hug. No matter the carers, especially the women carers, always had a hug for every man or woman, always a hug. Once Corona came, they couldn't do it. Basically, all these elderly people who had no word of Corona, they didn't even know what it was if you mentioned it to them. So next thing, you got your carer with a mask on, and they can't hug them. Do you understand me? They just hold their hand, missing the hug. You know what I mean? And the same for their families when they used to visit one. You know, first thing, hug your mother, hug your father.
Yeah.
And for months that wasn't to be. But so I wrote that one for the carers, and if there's any of them watching, nurses, carers, police officers, emergency services, we salute you all.
No, I think you raise an interesting point and an appropriate point in that we didn't lose the internet, we didn't lose telephones, we didn't lose television, so communication was wide open, but we forget, I think, how important that tactile thing is, that hug, the clutch,
the clutch.
You know, I think we forget how important that is and how much that lift us up. So, no, lovely poem. And
yeah, well, I wrote that one for the carers.
Yeah, no, beautiful, man. Beautiful.
So what do you got for us? Highlands?
Yeah, so this is Writing the Highlands, Western Star 6. So this is my astral projection.
Good God, like, you like Patrick Moore, but...
Yeah, exactly like him. You always say the nicest things to me, right? So, Writing the Highlands Western Stars, Part 6. Most days here the clouds are wispy, like tram wires on the western skies. It is beautiful. The landscape and lid casts the ranges as a loom, claps so soft on warping threads to shape the frame view. I will walk a well-tipped pepper pot, tread the soft dust while I wait for western stars. Looking out while daytime burns away, leading myself through the darkness to the denim waters of evening's loch, to see myself once more, hopeful in the spine of a wine bottle. There, I rest until the dawn's fresh call, then set off to find my image and how it seems within your scope. I may find you on the sand, in the shapes of walking cells, here where I need to dream no more. The footprint shapes are yours, and I will fill them with my rain. I hope to see my own face when the sun finally crowns.
Excellent, excellent. But you know what I mean? It's beautiful, and you've got a lovely voice when you put it over. You know what I mean? As you know, I like people reading my poetry. I don't like reading my own poetry, but you've got one of those voices where I think you could read any poem.
Well, thank you.
Do you understand me? I think when like my poetry, I have no doubt you could look at one of my poems like the ones I've read, and you put a different lilt on it, you put a different sort of perception on it, perhaps, I don't know. That's why I like other people to read it. You know? But you've got that voice, you've got that delivery. I think that's it. And because you've written it yourself, you know how to deliver it, obviously, don't you?
Yeah.
So, but like you go from this pandemic, if you want to sort of sit down and listen to your CD now, I can imagine people putting it on and you'll take them away from everything. Because you've got a beautiful descriptive voice on the landscape. You can take people to the loch, you can take people to the sky, to the fluffy clouds and stuff like that. You can take them there, and I think that's a skill that I haven't got that. I haven't got that skill to do that. I think other people have. You know what I mean? Other people who read my poetry have got it, but I don't think I have. I just read it. I do. I suppose if you listen to mine, you probably see the funny ones are the best.
I am a fan of them. I am a fan. Oh, I mean, I think some of yours. I think you underestimate your wonderful Welsh lilt when you deliver them.
Well, you go back to Terry Maguire now, and as you know, we got this thing coming up with dramatization. I don't want Terry Maguire to be proper Welshie, like come over. Right. I don't want him to be like that. I'd rather have him a voice like yours. Do you understand? A strong voice who can be soft as well, when he's dealing with women or whatever, or bereavement. I don't want him to come over as I'd like a couple of the characters to be a bit Welshy, like like, say, for example, the pathologist, like the old doctor. I come in, Terry, like, what have you got to do for me? What have you got? What's the cause of death? Well, he's dead, Sita. That type of thing. A bit of humour. But
I always thought that the doctor on the Starship Enterprise would have been great if he'd been Welsh. It's worse than that. He's dead, but I would be great.
Which one? Spock?
Yeah, no, Dr. Bones.
Oh, Bones, the Scotch fella.
Yeah, that would be great.
Captain, our starboard engine's gone back.
Imagine the intercom going off and Shatner's going, yes, medical bay, and then this voice going, look, Bat, we got a real problem down here, right?
No, you better get up here, Captain, because the engine's falling off.
Yes,
no, I love my telly, right? I'm watching TCM as we talking, like, Strangers on a Train, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, masterpiece.
I could probably give the dialect. I could probably give the dialect, as I say. I've seen it about 25 times. But you can pick up things off it, obviously. But no, it's I watch a lot of stuff, especially around Welsh, sort of, when they bring up, like, what was the one I watched? Oh, it was terrible. It was The Bamba, when he shot his sister and the kids.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jeremy Bamber, that remember they made it, and the SIO act was from Liverpool. He's a Liverpudlian actor, and he put on this Welsh lilt.
Ugh.
Did you remember it?
I vaguely, I struggle now after Robert Downey Jr.'s Welsh accent in the new Doctor Dolittle.
Yeah.
And what I could understand with that one in particular was Robert Downey Jr. is there doing a Welsh accent, right? And playing opposite him is Michael Sheen doing an English accent.
That's right.
And then Joanna Page from Gavin and Stacey's in it as well.
I know.
So it's not bad enough you're doing a bad accent, but you're doing it in front of two Welsh people.
Exactly. And when I watched this, it came on. I thought, oh, this is going to be good now, because good actors in it, class actors in it. Oh,
shocking!
The first time he opened his mouth, I looked at Caroline, but I said, "They spoilt it for me."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Well, we've only seen 10 minutes." I said, "They've spoilt it for me because I'm drawn to him now."
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, don't open your trap now. Oh, please don't start talking. And I think to myself, he's a fabulous actor. Leave him as he is. But because I think the SIO was Welsh, they decide to have an English bloke playing a Welshman.
Mm.
And I think, no, you should have had somebody really really tidy.
We've got enough actors in Wales.
We've got one of my favourites, Mark Lewis-Jones. People say about Terry. I love Mark Lewis-Jones to play Terry if he came on a telly, because he's very much like you. He's thick-set bloke. He got that sort of strong features, and he can act. He can be soft. He can be hard. He can be anything. Mark Lewis-Jones can. And he haven't got that. He can put that lilt on if you want to, but he can also speak quite, ordinary.
Well, I still think Tom Cruise, but that's me.
Tom Cruise.
Right, buddy, we are out of time.
Lovely, but we haven't done bad. What's that? Hour and
a bit.
Hour and a quarter.
Right. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ross. It's a pleasure, but I enjoy them, as you know.
Yeah.
We're running out of things to talk about, though.
No, we never will. Next time we'll do the Poet of Cairo.
Oh, God alive. I came out of the blue, that didn't it? I never ever thought somebody write a poem for me.
Well, that's the nearest I've got to comedy, so it's fine.
That's right. I'd be having a blue plaque next up on the house in Cairo.
Well, I can't have one now because Aberdeen Hospital, they pulled it down, right? It's rubbled, right? I'm born there.
You are.
And I'm thinking, where are they going to put the plaque?
Exactly. Funny thing, I was saying to Caroline now, my brother came in, Norman, and he took a load of the old self-published books up to Ailacue Workingmen's Club, see, because he plays snooker up there. And he was there one day, and some woman said to him, "Does your brother write books?" And I said, "Aye, Arthur." "Oh, aye, somebody told me that your brother writes books." He said, "Well, I'll bring some up for you." So he took them up there, and they're the first editions, the original ones, which when you look at the present one now, you think, "Oh, God alive, did I put that up?" But I said to Caroline, if they keep them now, see, and when I pop off, and they'd be worth a lot of money. Well, they sign, see.
Well, they're probably keeping the snooker tables nice and flat.
They're keeping it. Apparently, the edge of integrity is keeping the leg by the yellow spot level.
Better than a spirit level, I guess.
They've had to rip 5 pages out of it, though.
Yeah, don't give away the ending. The Butler did it. Don't read Edge of Integrity. The Butler did it.
There we are, but all the best.
Thank you, buddy. You take care.
Ta-ra, Ross. Ta-ra.
Mm-hmm.